This is From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Each week, Janice shares her wisdom to enlighten, educate, and advance the culture in America today. Janice Pons is a mother, author, and free thinker, and your host for our podcast this evening. Now let's join your host, Janice Pons.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Come on in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so glad that you are here. Thank you so much for continuing to join in, for being so encouraging, supportive, loving, praying for me. I appreciate you greatly, all of my listening audience. I really do. Thank you. Come on in. Welcome. My name is Janice Pons. I am your host on this show, on this podcast, From Destruction to Dignity, Clinical Perspectives, Spiritual Truths. Now, you know me. Those who've been looking at this for a while now. Gosh, I think through this might be episode 105. And tonight we're going to dive into something that is prevalent in our society, because you know me, I want to provoke thought, bring awareness, and point people towards intervention. And there is an area that there is a dire need for intervention. And you know, this is all fair use, because what we're going to talk about tonight, there's a prevalence of trends about it, and articles and just conversations. I mean, we're talking about this at work, and the conversations about the propensity towards violence in our society to handle conflict. And the way to solve it and address it is violence? I beg to differ. So tonight we're going to talk about stopping violence through effective communication. What do you mean? You mean we can actually prevent violence through effective communication? If you just scroll through Facebook, Instagram, anywhere, social media, you will see these trends that people think it's okay. I mean, snatching hair off, ripping bras off, fighting, brawling, and little children are watching this, and they're screaming and they're yelling and they're being traumatized by what they see, that adults are choosing to handle their conflict by inflicting violence upon others. So what are we teaching children? What are they being taught? That if you disagree with someone, if you have conflict with someone, we're teaching them that the proper way to handle this is to become violent. We really have got to wrap our minds around this. Listen, and I can hear people. Well, we just need to pray. We just need to pray. I never will. I start my day off in prayer. I believe in prayer. Yes, yes, yes. And we need to teach people strategies, skills, and tools for wellness and recovery. They don't know how to properly communicate. They holler, they cuss, they yell, they fight, they snatch, they bite, they shoot, they stab. Violence. Stopping violence through effective communication. Let's dive in further. I love talking about this because I've had some of the most violent people cussing, ranting, gone out of their minds. And I'm like, look at me. They were in treatment settings. Look at me. Look at my eyes. And I was able to effectively back them out and get them to a point where they can use some of the strategies, skills, and tools that we're going to eventually get to here. So, preventing violence. When we're talking about violence, you have to have an understanding and say, well, you know, these kids, they just need to stop fighting, and they just need to pray. True, absolutely. But you know what? If we don't understand the who, the what, the when, the where, and the how that's associated with violence, we won't get to the root. We will not get to the root. Who, what, when, where, how, why? That drove me. That propelled me as an educator. I taught my son who, what, when, where, how, why. Break it down to me, son. If you don't know who, what, when, where, how, why, how are we going to know what to target? Grasping the magnitude of the problem of violence and how it is connected with the breakdown of communication involves analyzing data, analyzing behaviors, violence-related behaviors, injuries, and deaths. How did it happen? How did they end up dead? What was the breakdown of communication that someone's life ended? Breakdown of communication, yeah, that ended up in death. Listen, we're not helpless. No. We're not helpless about this. This thing can be turned around. I've seen it. I've run treatment programs, and it was like, there was well, I'm going to kick your... I said, baby, wait. We don't kick anything up in here, but give me that kickball over there in the corner. Come on, let's all go outside. We get ready to go play kickball. They look at me like, what is the deal with this lady? I'm like, because we certainly not kicking any. We don't do it. We communicate. We interact. We problem solve. We go there. We communicate. Now, if you want to kick something, we're going out here and play kickball. Let's go do that first, and then we're coming back in here, and we're going to learn some strategies, skills, and tools to properly communicate. And we'll never hit that intersection that you were getting ready to go down, where you were getting ready to fight in here, and we got children in here. No, we don't do that here. Not in any place that I run. You understand? I need your support. I need your help. Will you partner with me? Yes, ma'am. So, I am empowering parental resilience when I'm interacting with. I did that at a substance abuse treatment program for women and their minor dependent children. That's how I interacted. And it got to the point they said, you know how Miss Pons is? Yes. She promotes parental resilience. I promoted social connections. So come on, we're going on out here and socialize. We're going to have a good time. And you know, you don't smoke crack anymore, right? That part right there. We socialize in other ways. Support in the time of need, that's what we do. Yeah, that's what we do. That's the environments that I created. And that's, if we learn to think that way, we can empower, we can teach people how to do that. That's what we do in churches, not be the leadership of conflict and slamming people from pulpits. Knowledge of parenting and child development fits in. So I want parents in churches, in treatment settings, in their homes to be empowered with that and having a competence when it comes to their development. Like, you know, I think I talked about this a couple of weeks ago at that place where the women and children were in treatment, and the worker was, I'm big into clinically sound documentation, and I was like, what did you write down here? What is that? That they played. What do you mean they played? Well, that's what they did. They played. I said, hold on. Just hold on. Why did you have them playing? She thought, why did you have them playing? Come on. We're grown. Well, I wanted them to, I said, go ahead. You're on the right track. I wanted to develop their social and emotional developmental skills. That's your note. And that connected back to a treatment plan, and we took care of cross documentation. Therefore, we were clinically sound. We had a treatment plan with objectives that were observable and measurable. And Johnny and Susie played and shared and talked and problem solved by sharing and had conflict resolution as evidenced by yeah, as evidenced by what? They disagreed and they decided that they would take turns. We cross-documented all the way back to the treatment plan, to the objective. It's observable, it's measurable, and we're intentional. And said, so therefore, we are addressing social and emotional competence of children. So if we do it intentionally, what might happen? Huh? We need to be talking about this stuff in church too, guys. I'm telling you, if pastors would just take, well, we don't need to be talking about, yes, you do. You got folks just wearing their kids out. Take 10 minutes to put that on your screen. Just have a little segment or something that we go there. Some of them can't afford to go to therapy or whatever. They're just interventions. I'm really encouraging us to think differently. Positive attitudes are taught. Values, beliefs are taught. All of it's under attack. It's under a ferocious attack right now. Conflict resolution skills are taught. It's under attack. Good mental, physical, spiritual, emotional health. This is taught, but it's under attack. And this is what contributes to violence and ineffective communication. Because if you cussing and fighting, you communicating. Oh yeah, you're communicating loud and clear when you're doing that. Okay? So having this low self-worth. See, we don't often connect that, like the who, what, when, where, how, why. Low self-worth. Having experienced abuse or neglect yourself. Who, what, when, where, how, why. Witnessing violence in the home. Who, what, when, where, how, why. Violence in the home, violence in the community, media. Where did they get that data from? Where do children get that train of thought from? Intervention. Provoke thought, bring awareness, point people towards intervention. It might be advantageous, my precious brothers and sisters, my precious audience, my fellow Americans, my fellow members of humanity, for us to understand basic communication styles. The basic communication styles are passive, aggressive, passive-aggressive, and assertive. You are communicating. We communicate. We teach children to communicate in those 4 types of ways. Passive, aggressive, passive-aggressive, or assertive. It's important to understand each of these styles and why people use them. Who, what, when, where, how, why. Why? Why are we being passive? Why are we being aggressive? What is your goal in being aggressive? What is your goal in being, passive aggressive? What is your goal when you're being assertive? Every person has a unique style. I have learned to master being assertive. It serves me well. It's very important to understand each of these styles, and It has been proven over and over again, and I have learned to do it, and I teach others to do it, and I have dealt with some of the most violent people and broke that thing down about how powerful they can become and how effective they can be in meeting goals and excelling in life by learning to be assertive. By learning to be assertive. And it is by far the most effective style of communication. It blows people away when they learn how to do it. I love this right here. I love this. So let's break some things down here. Let's look at passive. People who are passive in their communication style, usually they're just indifferent. They just yield to others. They usually fail to express their feelings or their needs. They just don't do it. They shut down. They're quiet. They fail to express their feelings or their needs, and they allow others to express themselves. But you can talk, yeah, well, whatever. Frequently, a passive communicator's lack of outward communication can lead to serious misunderstandings. And you know what else happens to them? They have a huge buildup of anger and resentment, and they stuff, and they stuff, and they stuff, and they pop. And I've seen that pop be a suicide attempt. And it all could have been prevented. And by being passive, actually they're communicating. They're communicating. But a lot of times they want to avoid confrontation. They don't know how to properly handle confrontation. So they'll sit somewhere and just be abused. They'll just keep taking it and keep taking it and just passively keep taking it. And they get browbeat. It happens in families, it happens in churches, it happens at work, it happens in relationships where people are passive and they tend to they lack eye contact. It's hard, it's a challenge for them to look at people straight in the eye. They tend to have poor body posture, and they tend to have the inability to say no. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of the living God. I remember the time, and I say Jesus Christ, Son of the living God, because one time I was in a conflict and the Holy Spirit put me under arrest, and he said, you need to go out there and you need to tell her, I like to respectfully remind you that I said no. And I'm not sure what is it that you don't understand about no, the N or the O. That person looked at me like a deer with headlights. And they were like, I'm sorry. And I said, I accept your apology. Thank you. And walked off. See, a lot of times when that effective communication, that's all right. That's not effective communication. Let them take responsibility. It's empowering to you and to them because they're taking responsibility. Oh, when people are passive, they'll end up saying things like, well, people never consider my feelings. Well, wait. People that end up being passive, they dangerously explode later. Passive communicators, they just go with the flow. They don't say anything. And they get ramrodded and they get trampled upon. And they say, well, it just really doesn't matter that much. And I just want to keep the peace. And I don't want to cause any problems. Okay. All right. And they get abused. So that's passive. Now let's look at aggressive. It is very apparent when someone communicates in an aggressive manner. You know why? Because you hear it. You see it, and you may even feel it, because they will hit you. They will yell at you. You hear it. You hear the yelling. You hear the berating. You hear them putting people down. They're aggressive in their verbalizations. You see their body language. You hear their threatening tones. And they can even go so far as to actually inflict physical harm on someone. Aggressive communication style is emphasizes by speaking loud, having a demanding voice, having an intense eye contact, and glaring people down. But this demanding, demeaning voice where they are dominating, that's aggressive behavior, dominating in their interactions with others. They're controlling. They're blaming, they're intimidating, they're criticizing others. That's aggressive communication. They're threatening. They belittle you. They attack others. They accuse people of betraying them. That's aggressive communication. Putting people down. That's aggressive. It is. Aggressive communicators often they issue commands. They ask questions rudely. They're intrusive. A lot of times they don't listen to others, and if they do, they're not being active listeners often. They are listening with a goal to grab something that they can use against you. And often the premise that aggressive communicators operate from is that I'm right and you wrong. I'm right, you wrong, and that's it. Comes across, I'll get my way no matter what. It's all your fault. They never, hardly ever take any responsibility. Aggressive. Then there's passive aggressive. Passive aggressive communication. Is here. They're passive on the surface, but within they can feel powerless. But they're gonna take it out on something or someone else. They may mutter to themselves rather than to confront effectively, assertively the person that they're having conflict with. But they'll do things like slam doors, kick the dog. Cuss somebody else out when they were upset with the person over there. They have a lot of difficulty acknowledging their anger, what they're experiencing, and they'll use facial expressions that don't correlate with how they feel, and they'll even deny that it's a problem. Ain't nothing wrong. Ain't nothing wrong with me. It's like, baby, it's all over you. Your body language, there's something going on. Passive aggressive communicators, they tend to communicate with body language, but they lack the ability to effectively communicate where they are with the person that they're really upset with. They just do. So passive, listen, one of the most passive aggressive actions that a person could ever take is that they're upset with someone else and they take it out on themselves. And that can happen in the form of a suicide attempt. I've seen it over and over and over again. They didn't express their feelings. They'll say things like, well, it's fine with me. It just, I just don't want them to get mad. But then they'll go take it out on themselves or take it out on the door or slam things and cut things. And it's like, who are you upset with, baby? Are you cutting up furniture? They're not upset at the couch. They're passive, shut down at who they're really upset with, and aggressively take it out somewhere else, sometimes themselves. The most effective communication is being assertive. That's what we want to teach our children to be. It is thought to be the most effective form of communication that there is. You're not overbearing. You express your own needs, your desires, your ideas, your feelings, while also considering the needs of others. That's how assertive people communicate. Assertive communicators, they aim for both sides. They want a win-win situation. So they're balancing the rights of everybody. Assertive communicators can express their own needs, desires, their ideas, their feelings, while considering the needs of everybody else. So here's your formula. And when I do this group in therapeutic settings, we role play until everybody gets it. And so they use I statements. I feel, and I prefer. I feel frustrated when you're late for the meeting. And I prefer that we all purpose, everybody, we've agreed, we agreed upon this. And when you're assertive, you don't even have to name people, because you would have already agreed on how we're going to do things that's going to be the most effective. So you can say, I just feel frustrated when we're late starting a meeting. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Everybody's got families and everything. And what I prefer is that we just go ahead and make it a priority to get here. And you don't name anybody. You don't have to, because you've already established, particularly within an entity or an organization, that this is how we do it. And you don't have to explain yourself over and over again, because you've already decided that this is how we communicate, right? So examples of phrases where someone's being assertive: we are equally entitled to express ourselves and be respectful to one another. And when I'm assertive, I said, go ahead. You go ahead. I want to hear what you have to say. What you're saying is very important to me. It's very important to the group. Oh, okay. They're not used to, a lot of times people are not used to anyone talking that way. They're not. I respect the rights of everybody in here. So go ahead. You go first, And so when we become assertive communicators, we take ownership by saying, I feel. I love saying, I miss that. I am so sorry. I take full responsibility for that. I maintain eye contact. I ask you to please forgive me. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to be a doorknob and that you can learn to say no. I remember when the Holy Spirit taught me, he said, go in there and tell them, what is it that you don't understand, the N or the O? Oh, boy. Things went to an entirely other level. So listen, when we have effective communication, the chances of violence kicking in decreases. Why? I'm expressing my personal rights and feelings. I'm not hurting anyone. The most aggressive form of communication, you want to guess what it is? The most aggressive act of communication is murder. The communication broke down. I seen it. It escalates. All of a sudden, you're hollering, you're cussing. Then somebody hits somebody. Then it escalates. It escalates, and it's like, whoa, time out. Breakdown of communication. Breakdown of communication. When people are dealing with emotions that are not properly expressed, they become vulnerable to be passive, to be passive aggressive, to be aggressive. I want to encourage us to embrace us as adults, as teenagers, as young people, to be assertive and to teach our children how to do the same. We're models. Listen, this passive aggressive and passive aggressive pattern of communication leads to a path of destruction. God wants us to be effective communicators. He wants us to look at who, what, when, where, how, and why. He wants our thought patterns dissecting that. And he wants us to be assertive, where we say, I feel and I prefer. I feel and I prefer. I encourage you to share this. Share this. Go over this with your children and teach them how to be assertive communicators. Good night.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Janice's mission is to provoke thought, bring awareness, and point people towards intervention when needed. As a reminder, this show is not therapy, but for educational purposes only. For more information, check out JanicePons.com or follow her on social media.